Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Rainbow Crossing Podcast, a podcast where Gen X and Gen Z discuss life's challenges and how we face them as queer people. We have these open conversations to foster a sense of community through different perspectives. My name is Julio Guzman, and with me is my roommate, best friend, father. Yeah, that's about it. I'll end it there. I won't be mean.
Thank you. That covers it all.
Yeah, of course.
Daniel.
Yep. Welcome to your home.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Of course.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
I could say the same.
Honestly, I don't want to be anywhere else.
I know, being home today on this crazy weekend of South by Southwest here in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
The best place to be if it's not out is home. Because the traffic
So bad.
is crazy.
So bad. Yeah.
Crazy. It took me like 20 minutes to get here.
And it should take you like 5.
Yeah, literally 5. But anywho, how's your week been?
Good. It was a very productive week. I finally feel like I'm back on track again. The last several weekends, there's been something going on. And this weekend, it's relatively chill. So catching up, getting a couple of things accomplished, looking forward for a couple of things and getting some planning done. There's a little birthday celebration on the horizon.
Yeah, girl. A little or a big? Because you're asking for 2 weekends.
Yeah, I am.
Or is it big? Because it is a big birthday coming up. Not a little birthday.
It's not a little
a big birthday. You know, not a lot of people make it to what age?
I can't even say it.
Wow.
My throat
Do you want me
tightens
to say it
up.
for you? Or do you want the audience just to like use their
I
imagination?
imagine they're probably thinking, what is he turning 30 here?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people do go gray by like late 20s, so.
Honestly, my dad by his 30s was like all white.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So the fact that
skin's
I've
great.
kept
Hey.
as much.
Look at this skin, though.
Thank you.
By the way, people, he's turning big 5-0.
5-0. Yeah.
5-0. We're going to say it 50. It sounds a little scary to some
Yeah.
people, but it's a lovely thing. And you look
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you.
You don't
Thank you.
drink. The skin is still saying 30s.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate
has
it.
never had Botox.
No.
Clock it, people. You can't clock it.
Yeah. We'll talk about the birthday in a little more detail in a few weeks as we approach the date. But it is a weird feeling because I don't feel 50 and like my body's great, you know, like
sure.
I don't have any problems and there's no aches and pains or anything at all. So I don't feel like what in my mid 20s I would have thought 50 feels like. And it's not like you feel in your mind,
I mean,
I'm 50.
gays get scared of 30s.
Right.
Gays see 30s and like, oh my God, I'm turning 30. And I'm like, no, you should be excited.
Yeah. I was never fearful of it per se because I'm always just very much kind of like live in the moment and
sure.
be present.
It's all about how you feel.
Yeah.
Really. Because the number can be any number.
Right.
There's 50, 60-year-olds that give off more youthful energy than some 40-year-olds.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah. It's really about a positive mindset, honestly, because I find that, you know, a lot of people say if you're a certain age, surround yourself with people older than you to feel younger. And I do have older friends, and so I do feel younger around them. But I have a lot of younger friends too, and I still feel young around you, and maybe that's because you're keeping me younger.
Yeah, I'm keeping your mind sharp, you know?
I don't know if that's the case. You're doing your best. I don't know how much impact that's having on this thing.
I think it's having some kind of impact for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Whether it's declining or sharpening it.
Yeah.
It's all up to you.
Yeah, sure. How are you?
My week's been good. It's been busy. This is the first weekend where I'm not doing something.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the past 3, something has come up or I've been out or whatever it is. And this week, not much planned, which is good. I am going to hang out with a couple friends later, but it's going to be indoors. We're going to chill, just have a pizza night.
Yeah, nice. So we did enjoy an evening together on Thursday with the finale of The Traitors.
Yes.
And it has given me so much joy, from Carolyn to Gabby to Bob
Danielle.
to Danielle. No, she was entertaining for sure, but the show brought so many icons to the screen. But I think you had a particular icon from the show that you were thinking about this week as our icon of the week.
Yes. Alan Cumming, the
Yeah,
host.
yeah, yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
he is such an icon, and
is.
in fact, part of the community, which is even more iconic because
right.
we need to be celebrating all types of people,
Yeah.
and naming all types of icons.
Yeah.
But specifically, Alan Cumming is a man of through many different generations and audiences of people.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you can catch him in all types of different movies and
Right.
stories,
Right.
and portrays the most fun, crazy characters,
Right.
and he bundles all that up in The Traitors as well, which is lovely to see him, just his career and where he's at and his view on life and his fun energy on life. It's empowering.
It is. I didn't realize until we were talking about him earlier, he's actually bisexual. Like he's had long-standing relationships with women in addition to his current same-sex partner. But that was an interesting surprise because he is very outspoken about LGBTQ rights and advocates for all of that.
What is your first experience of Alan Cumming? My first experience was Spy Kids. That's where I ever saw him for the first time.
I had aged out of the Spy Kids type of movies, so I never really watched those. He was in Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, which you haven't seen that. Okay.
Right over my head.
But perhaps my favorite, and I think many people will agree with this, is him as Nightcrawler in
an amazing
the second
Nightcrawler.
X-Men movie, X2, which he was so good in that. And Nightcrawler is just this very stoic, religious type of character who he portrayed so well, and it's such a serious character. And obviously Alan Cumming is an actor, but I feel like The Traitors, he's portraying an alter ego on The Traitors, certainly. But I feel like that's closer to who he really is. So it's really interesting contrasting him from Spy Kids to Nightcrawler to now the host of this show, an Emmy Award-winning host, stealing that title from RuPaul from Drag Race. He's a fun guy, for sure.
You mentioning RuPaul and me just taking me in my mind from competitions and stuff. Did you see that video of Jeff Probst where they asked him, they're like, if you could bring any celebrity back or celebrity to do Survivor?
Yes.
And he said RuPaul.
Yeah.
And I think that would be like, first of all, RuPaul would never do it.
Never.
RuPaul would never do it. I don't think Jeff knows completely what RuPaul's like. I mean, none of us do completely, but just from what we can tell, that money's got to be up there. She don't need a mill. She don't need $1 million like that.
She would have to be guaranteed the $1 million before she even showed up.
It would be great TV, first of all. It would be hilarious to watch, but Mother Ru would never do it.
Never. Just the confessionals
yeah.
alone would be gold. Yeah, it's too bad that Ru doesn't do confessionals on Drag Race because it would just be hilarious nonstop.
Do you have any clouds and colors?
Yeah, I have some clouds.
Oh, no color.
Yeah, I mean, Alan Cumming was a lot of color, so I guess we got to balance it out here. This past week on Truth Social, I know you're a big Truth Social guy.
What is that?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I really don't know.
It's the Trump-owned social media platform.
That's what we called it, Truth Social.
Truth. It's only the truth is posted there.
If y'all haven't noticed, this man is everything he puts out there. Just think of the complete opposite, and that's what it is.
Right. Yes. Not truth. Not Truth Social. He posted a threat to stop federal funding for, quote, any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. And he proposed that agitators, quote, will be imprisoned and or permanently sent back to the country from which they came for any illegal protests. He did not clarify what an illegal protest was, but I imagine in his mind it's a protest that goes against anything that he believes in or is trying to pass through legislation or just through force of will. So that just goes against the fundamental principle of our freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. Like the idea that anyone would float that suggestion, let alone the leader of what used to be the greatest country in the world. The idea that you will be imprisoned, not just jailed, but imprisoned, or if you're not from here originally and you're on a college campus through a student visa, let's say, that you'll be sent back to where your country of origin is. It's fascism, it's dictatorship, it's trying to silence people who have an opinion different from yours. And that's just not, even though this country has plenty of problems, has had plenty of problems, but that's not what this country was founded on. And it certainly isn't the will of the people, and it certainly isn't what the vast majority of people are in favor of. So it continues the things that come out of Trump's mouth or his fingertips on the keyboard. Just boggles the mind that he thinks that he can float these egregious ideas and not get any blowback from it. Boggles my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy. And to that, don't let it affect you. Keep doing it. And if they start trying to implement those things in regards to taking people away and putting them to jail, link arms and drag everyone else down with you to the ground.
Fortunately, we've got organizations like the ACLU and a lot of just different states in general that have filed lawsuits against the Trump presidency and against these executive orders that he signed, knowing full well that these things aren't going to stand. But unfortunately, it's a long process. Chaos is the best word to describe it all right now. And yeah, we just have to keep powering through. You can't stick your head in the ground, in the sand, and just wait for it to go away. We have to be talking about it, and we have to act against it. Find those rallies that are in your city and attend. Speak out, talk to people.
But also realizing that we have the power. Like, don't let anyone else make you think that something isn't capable of happening, because in reality, anything is capable of happening. If we want it enough,
right,
we can move anything.
Right, yes. We can move mountains if enough people come together to do so.
It's as simple as just realizing that we have the power.
Yeah.
Which is the truth.
Right now, it's just motivating people and mobilizing people to act on these things. And I think enough people are starting to become uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
That's happening.
Every day I'm seeing more people speak up about things that they are not content with. And that's coming from the right side.
Exactly. Well, it's starting to affect them now at this point. So, unfortunately, that's what it took for some of them to get on board.
It's affecting you, which everything happens at its own time. But now's the time that it needs to happen more.
Yeah.
And it is. Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
We're going to grab the steering wheel eventually.
Yeah. We just need to make sure that we don't fall into the temptation of sticking our head in the sand.
Temptations. We all got them. We all know them.
Not me.
And if you don't know them, and if you think you don't got them, looking at you, Daniel, then you probably got the most.
Well, I don't think I have the most, but of course I have temptations also.
No, for sure. We all have temptations.
Yeah.
And that's what today's episode about.
Yeah.
It's about temptations. About things that make you want to do things, or things that maybe you shouldn't be doing that might affect your train of thought or your morals or your identity. But in the back of your mind, you're like, ooh, it makes me feel good, or it makes me feel valued, or whatever. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all got them.
Yeah. You and I were discussing what a temptation actually is. So just to clarify, a temptation is typically something that entices you to act in a way that goes against your better judgment, values, or long-term goals. It often involves an internal struggle, wanting something in the moment, but knowing it might have consequences. If you don't see something as a negative or don't care about the outcome, it may not feel like a temptation to you, but it could still be considered one if it challenges self-control or discipline.
Got it.
Yeah.
Which I asked that earlier. It's when I was like, is temptation a feeling? I was trying to figure out like what the gist of is.
Yeah.
It is. And it somewhat is a feeling.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And also it's something that could prevent you from being the best version of yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether you think it's a problem or not, it still is a temptation if it's preventing you from achieving something.
Yeah.
Is what you were saying, correct?
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. Do you have any temptations?
Ooh, I could name about maybe 2 that I'm currently dealing with.
Okay.
But for sure have had at least a big 3 that have affected my personal, emotional, and physical life.
So give me your big three then.
My big three, number one is probably going to be boys, boys, and boys, which,
Just like the Lady Gaga song.
yep. Boys is my number one temptation.
Yeah.
I'm working on it, and it's gotten better, and I've reeled it in so much.
Yeah.
But from being single for
Sure.
most of my adult life and just being able to do whatever I want when I want has gotten a little comfortable. And I've
Yeah.
had to reel that in because I don't want to be like my dad. As normal as it is for gay men to sleep with whoever they want as much as they like and be very sex positive about whoever and whatever, I am very self-conscious about it because me seeing my dad be this man whore who sleeps with whoever he wants and has all these kids, and the importance and weight that he had on certain things like sex and having multiple sexual partners really just gave me the ick. And it came to a point of like being like, okay, maybe I do enjoy sex, but I don't need to act on it every single time that I have the urge to hook up with someone.
Yeah.
So boys have been difficult to keep that at bay.
Well, you've seen how sex can have a very negative impact. You've felt it directly as the result of your father not being in your life to the degree that I'm sure you wish he would have been.
For sure. And what I saw was trash, so.
Yeah. My number one is the same as yours.
Oh, well, talk about it.
I put down boys. I was thinking Lady Gaga in my head as well. And
Well, what about boys is so tempting to you, Daniel?
I feel like almost all of our viewers are going to relate to this one as maybe in their top
We
three
don't
as
want to
well.
like men. No one's choosing to like men.
Nope.
But for some reason.
Yeah. If you've ever seen a cat in heat, I'm sure that many a gay boy can relate to that feeling at
definitely.
times. And like you, I have definitely grown into that being less of a temptation. It still is at times, certainly. I will say, though, that when I am in a relationship, I don't have the temptation anymore. I definitely found a way to turn that off when I'm in a relationship. And that is something that I did struggle with when I was your age and in a relationship. But this last relationship that I was in for almost 3 years, never once had a temptation to, cheat or sleep with somebody
You're
else.
So locked in
Yeah.
from what I've seen.
Yes, agreed. That was the evolution of that temptation. Now being single, and there comes a point in time where you do think okay, like nothing wrong with hooking up with someone if we're respectful of each other and no one's getting hurt in the process. But there does come a point where you're like, how much is too much? How much is this eating into my life? Am I letting this just take over? Finding that balance between being sex positive and then letting it consume you. Like, why are you being motivated to have sex on such a regular basis? And some of us just have that drive more than others, but some of us are looking to fill a void
Oh, for sure.
that we should be working on internally in ourselves. So that's something that I think that helped me in the relationship that I was in, is that I had filled that void, that I had filled my own cup, so to speak. I found that self-love, and then looking externally for this validation wasn't an issue anymore. What's your number two?
My number two. See, the reason why I was thinking about the question earlier about like what is temptation, because I've become content with this. It makes me feel better.
Okay.
It makes me feel more level-headed. It
Oh, I
makes
already
me
know what
feel
this is.
less angry. It makes me feel more go with the flow. Things aren't so deep as they normally are for myself. So my temptation is weed.
Yeah.
And I will say it loud and proud. I am a stoner. That doesn't seem so proud, but I am proud. I took a break at the beginning of the year.
You did.
Lasted like maybe a month and a half. And then I started smoking again, slowly. And here I am smoking again. And it is something that I'm working on. It's just hard to I don't want to sound like I'm justifying it, but I am justifying it because I know me pre-weed and I know me after weed, and I know that my energy just seems a lot more warm, I think, when I'm on weed.
Yeah.
Instead of being so, I don't want to say I'm like a negative Nancy when I'm not high.
No.
I'm more intense.
And you have more walls up when you are sober.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it. But I will say that, again, having lived with you for several years, that you do consume a lot less than you did just even like 2 years ago, maybe.
I've noticed that I've cut back as much as I was doing. Like 2 years ago, I was waking up, smoking, going to the gym, smoking, being high while working out.
Yeah.
And then after that, I come home, I smoke, I cook some food, I smoke, I do my chores, I smoke.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'm about to watch some TV. Let me take some smoke. And then right before bed, I guess I can get high right before bed. And that was my routine.
Yes.
Now it's like spaced out.
Substantially.
And I'll get high here and there.
Yeah.
And especially the days that I do get stressed more than usual, that's when I do up it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I got things to do, I wait till I'm done. Unless it's something creative, then sometimes it helps me flow a little bit better.
Sure.
But if it's like work, we're not partying until we're done.
Yeah.
Is what I've got into that habit of. But it is a temptation for me personally. And that could be any temptation with substance. And trust me, weed is not that bad compared to all the other substances that a lot of people consume. Even alcohol, which is more which is more common in society.
It's legal in all the states, whereas weed isn't. So
You don't see somebody popping off on somebody and getting angry and aggressive with somebody through weed.
yeah.
You don't see people getting into crazy car accidents, killing multiple people over weed. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So hop off if you got a problem with weed. Or hop on. Maybe you need it. If you're so pressed, my suggestion to you is get a little stoned.
I will say that that's not a temptation that I've faced. Like any of the smoking or alcohol or weed or any kind of drugs. Never been highly tempted to do any of that.
Well, then what is your second temptation?
It's perhaps more deadly than that. That's gossip.
Oh my God. You're telling me you love to gossip? You're telling me you like to run your mouth? You're telling me you like to tell people's darkest secrets to your roommate that no one knows about? And then, y'all, I know everything. I'm telling y'all right now, if you tell something to this man, I know it too. So just be careful. If you're sharing your secret with him, you're sharing it with another person. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He'll keep the secrets.
If it's an essential secret, then if somebody's like, do not tell anybody, then I won't tell anybody. But if it's like hey, this is on the down low, then you're probably going to hear about it. But doesn't everybody have that one person that they confide in?
Yes, they do.
Whether it's your romantic partner, your best friend, a roommate, whatever it is. And you're that person for me.
Same, Daniel.
But at one point in time, it was just, if I knew a secret, it was just a fire burning inside of me.
It's like word vomit.
Yeah. And I just I just need to share this. And I think part of that, again, was resolved when I started filling my own bucket and I wasn't looking for someone else to validate me through oh, that's so cool. Let me listen to what you have to say. So it definitely has died down over time, but there are still moments where I'm like, oh, I've got this juicy thing and I just want to talk about it.
Hey, you don't have to rationalize gossiping to a gay. It's second nature. And at this point, gossiping, that's one count for you. Being an Aries, count number 2. Being an extrovert, count number 3. Yeah, you just love to talk. And if it's some spiciness and it's piping hot, it's going to be delivered to someone.
I have seen gossip blow up in someone's face and be very detrimental. And this was not a situation that I caused. Well, I was involved. So this was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was at my then best friend's house for a sleepover. And his parents had a very different relationship than my parents had. My parents were that stereotypical leave it to beaver kind of oh, I love you so much. What can I do for you, sweetie? How can I help you today, honey? And their relationship was they had gotten pregnant maybe when they weren't married and they just stayed together because they were religious. So they just didn't have a happy marriage. And that was not something that I was accustomed to. So I was spending the night. I was exposed to a lot of arguing between the mom and the dad. And I shared that with my mom. and she shared it with other people in our church. My mom, I mean, she was young. She was in her 30s at the time, and she likes to talk as well. And I remember the mother of my best friend confronting my mom about it, because she was a very direct person. And it was at church. And she basically said, look, I know that we don't have the kind of relationship that you have, but I don't appreciate you talking about it with other people. And it really humbled my mom. And I think it taught her a lesson.
Honestly, if anything, I was thinking about it right now. I'm like, gays love to gossip. No one likes to gossip more than a woman at church. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Going to church, those women, they love to gossip.
Yeah.
Love to gossip about who that person is, what their life story is, who they're hanging out with,
Yeah.
what they wore, what is going on. They are some of the most judgiest people ever. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
It checks out.
Yeah.
But as your mom learned in this situation, sometimes it's best to think about what you're about to say.
Just think before you speak. I mean, my parents taught me that. My mom taught me that before she was in that predicament. Think before you speak. And she didn't in that instance, but I guarantee you after that, she certainly did when it comes to other people's business.
For sure. Well, that's leading up to my third temptation, which is think before you speak. My temptation, one that I've dealt with now at this point, was saying what I'm thinking. And that was my biggest problem. That was the temptation. And it was just, it's not my fault. I was built this way. My mind automatically, when something is happening or someone is saying something, being shady or whatever, instantly will come with a dig or material to just say right off the bat. Like, I don't even got to think about that person. I could just see a scenario happening and my mind's just running with things to say coming out of my mouth. And back in the day, by back in the day, it sounds crazy because I'm still young, but when I was even younger, like a kid, no filter, nothing. My mouth would get me in trouble so much. And I would just give in to temptation. I'm like, say it. Fuck it. They deserve it. They deserve to hear what I'm about to say. Whether they're going to like it or not, whether it's going to make them cry, whether it's going to make them hurt themselves, whether it's going to make them angry at me, whether they're going to end up wanting to hurt me, doesn't matter. I was saying it. And that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn, not to give in to the temptation to say what's on my mind instantly. Yeah. Now I think and react. Or sometimes I just keep it to myself. And I'm like, no, they don't need it. But I will give into that temptation occasionally here or there if someone is deserving of what I have to say.
Yeah, I've been witness to and have experienced that a time or two. Yeah.
I'll tell you how you're acting if you're not aware and no one's telling you. Like, I will tell you.
Yeah.
I just have to. And whether you hate me afterwards, usually it ends up being a little hurt at the beginning, but then a couple moments later, days, weeks, they'll be like, hey, I thought about what you said and I totally agree, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's got to be done. It has to be done.
But maybe softer.
And I've learned that.
Yeah.
And I've learned that. That's why I'm saying it takes a lot these days for me to pop off on someone that way.
Agreed.
Because I've learned and I've adjusted to those temptations of just saying whatever's on my mind.
You've matured.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is your last temptation?
Yeah, well, speaking of working on stuff, this is one that I feel like I have largely overcome. It's not necessarily a temptation these days, although occasionally it may rear its ugly head. But that's seeking validation. And again, like most of these temptations that I've talked about really were born of that central theme of wanting someone else to justify my existence, to feed me a little bit of love. And it's because I wasn't feeding myself enough of that love. I didn't know how to fill up my own cup. I didn't know how to be happy in my own skin. And therefore, I was looking for it in other places. And it may have been through sex at some point. That was a big struggle of mine for a really long time until I was able to really just give myself the validation that I was seeking, that I needed. And now that that's pretty much taken care of, that's not so much of a temptation anymore to seek outward validation.
For sure. I mean, wanting attention, craving attention will make you do the craziest things ever. And sometimes it could benefit you and sometimes it'll harm you. Most likely it'll harm you if it's a temptation in regards to something you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
But there's other ways to combat wanting attention. Can you give common temptations? Maybe to show what common temptations are in today's society.
I think most of our audience has probably faced one or more of these temptations at some times. One of these common temptations: food indulgences, junk food, sweets,
Guilty.
or just overeating in general, even though you're full. Procrastination.
Guilty.
That's the tough one.
I've checked both of those before.
Yeah. Especially with these things now, like just getting lost in social media.
Stuck in a loop.
Yeah. Overspending. That's never been an issue of mine.
For a moment, it usually happens during Black Friday time, which now I'm like, now I haven't spent much money on Amazon because I'm trying to boycott as best as possible. But right before going to bed, I'm unlocking Amazon for some reason to see what can I purchase next. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that was just for the excitement, for the rush of getting something new, which is not okay.
I get it.
You know?
Yeah. It's that a lot of these temptations are just these dopamine rushes,
Yeah.
and like knowing you're getting something new
Or eating something.
Yeah.
I have less pressure on that now, but now I just eat whatever I want and don't feel too guilty of it. I am
in moderation.
in moderation. Like, if I want that slice of cake, I'm gonna eat that slice of cake.
But you're not eating a whole cake
No,
at one
I
sitting.
could.
I'm sure you could.
Not in one setting, but over a week, I could eat a whole cake.
Sure,
And I
that's
probably
fine.
would.
Yeah.
But I'm also still balancing it out with other things to
Right.
where it's not affecting me completely.
Exactly. Another one, we've already talked about this one, casual hookups or cheating, particularly when you're in a relationship, substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, etc. And then this one, gossiping or just drama in general, which we both kind of touched on. So those are the most like common temptations. I think every single person alive has probably touched on one or more of those at some point. Yeah.
So those are the most common ones.
Yeah.
How do we
stop
it? How do we have control over those things when we feel so powerless to them?
It's so hard when you're in the moment, particularly, I think, and maybe it's just because it's our number one, but when you are horny and, you're thinking about hooking up or, heaven forbid you're in a relationship and you're thinking about cheating in that moment, it's really hard to do this. But if you can just pause and just take a moment to reflect on what this actually means, what is this bringing into my life, and what is the potential damage that this can do to other people, but also just to yourself. If you have that kind of self-control where you can do that, temptations should be relatively easy to get under control if you can pause and reflect.
And if you don't have that much self-control, you can practice it.
Absolutely.
No one gets to the point of just being like, temptations, I don't need them.
It doesn't
I can
happen
stop.
overnight.
No. You got to take it bit by bit. I mean, for example, I'm experiencing the weed part right now. I hope to someday get down to where maybe I don't feel so dependent on my mood and energy and my focus for it.
Yeah.
And I can just get into that flow of not needing weed. But from where I was to where I'm going, the progress is there.
Right.
It's not happening overnight, but I am taking the necessary precautions to get to my goal eventually.
As you're working on that self-control, you can practice something else, and that is create barriers. And that might mean if you're having an issue hooking up, maybe it's deleting Grindr from your phone or whatever app that you're using. Yeah. So if Grindr isn't there, you can download it again and sign up again. But at least that gives you the time to stop and think about what you're doing. So create the barriers if you have a problem, and then that'll give you a second or two to breathe.
Yeah. Maybe associate that temptation with something else. Like anytime that you are feeling the urge to hit someone up because you're feeling some type of way, or do some type of drug, or take some certain amount of drinks to feel something, maybe do something completely different. Like anytime you have the urge to smoke, work on music, work on reading a book, learn how to quilt, learn how to do something that you can just take that energy and apply it to that That's one way to
That's a great substituting
substitute the
bad habit
addiction.
with the good habit. Absolutely. Substituting. That's a great suggestion. Also, just having accountability, like sharing with a friend or a therapist or a group setting that you have these issues, and having to report back to somebody else, whether you fell into temptation or not, can oftentimes help you avoid the temptation, because you want to be the best version of yourself for you, sure, but you also don't want to let other people down.
Well, great conversation.
Yeah.
I hope I was talking loud enough this time.
We'll ask Philip.
Our temporary roommate
Yeah.
was like, I listened to the podcast and it was great, but Julio, I could barely hear you. I'm so sorry that I just have such a gentle, sweet, calm, nurturing voice that sometimes you might not be able to hear it.
Only here on the podcast.
That's still
Not in life.
Anywho, thank y'all
Yes.
for listening, tuning in.
Please give us a like, a comment, a subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Take care of yourself. Bye.
Bye.